Hi, I'm Jesse Revell Reviews reviewer Jesse Revell of JesseRevell Reviews, and I'm here to review Zack Snyder's Justice League. Just as a warning, there will be major spoilers for this film as well as major spoilers for both Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. You have been warned. For the purposes of this video, the 2017 version of Justice League will simply be referred to as Justice League, while Zack Snyder's Justice League will be referred to as the Snyder Cut. On to the review. While there are a handful of shitty films based on DC Comics, as evidenced by this JPEG, there are also a ton of great films based on DC Comics, as evidenced by this JPEG. My favorites among the bunch being Zack's own Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. Over the last 5 years, I have rewatched both Man of Steel and Batman v Superman several times, and they have become not only my favorite superhero movies ever, but a couple of my favorite movies ever. In Man of Steel, Zack took Malick's Tree of Life era impressionistic sensibilities and phenomenological obsessions and applied it to the superhero genre. Magic hour skies are juxtaposed by destroyed CGI cityscapes as Zack continuously searches for Clark's place in the frame, just as Clark himself searches for his place in the world. Clark's existence is all about faith, something that both his biological and adoptive fathers had with him. Man of Steel strips away the perfect morality often found in the superhero genre and in Hollywood, and gives weight to Clark's actions, considering him as an active moral agent in the world. A perfect moral interpretation of Clark's murder of Zod is not given by the film because this interpretation does not exist. Therefore, it is not a faith in being perfect from the moment of her birth that Clark represents, but a faith in human potential, and the ability to grow. Man of Steel is not afraid to ask difficult philosophical and political questions. This is taken even further in Batman v Superman, where Zack puts the superhero genre under the microscope, meticulously breaking down and exploring the philosophical and political implications of the genre as they relate to the present post-9/11 world. A world that has been shaken by the existence of aliens, thrown into an endless crisis that will not disappear until all of the questions have been answered. But the questions that Batman v Superman poses are not easy to answer. There are difficult, multi-layered questions with no single simple solution. Between Batman, Superman, Luthor, and Lois, Batman v Superman becomes a battle of ideas. Batman is a violent, revengeful anti-hero drowning in a series of contradictions. Superman is the manifestation of human idealism who is also experiencing trauma over his past actions. Lex Luthor rejects Superman's idealism but fails to posit an alternative, resulting in nihilism. And Lois greatly values empiricism, working to discover the connections between people, places, and events in order to expose corruption within illegitimate institutions of power. In the end, Superman dies, which makes Bruce feel guilty. Bruce feels like he has to put together a team to try and make up for his mistakes. Thus, Superman's death represents the ultimate sacrifice, the restoration of faith to those that had lost their faith, the reignition of purpose and a belief that we can be better. If you seek his monument, look around you. The world is still standing because of what Clark did. The death of Superman was the rebirth of Bruce. One of the most beautiful endings in movie history. The DCEU was off to a magnificent start. And then Suicide Squad came out. And to be honest, I've never hated Suicide Squad. While I admit that most of it is pretty bad, it's not the worst movie ever. Wonder Woman and Justice League disappointed me the following year. It felt like the DCEU was trying to be the MCU, and it wasn't really working. Over the next few years, the god-awful Aquaman, Birds of Prey, and Wonder Woman 1984 came out, and pretty much destroyed any remaining hope that I had for the DCU. But on May 20th, 2020, Zack, Deborah, and Henry announced that the Snyder Cut existed in a live stream, and they announced that it would be completed and released on HBO Max. If Man of Steel was Zack's Tree of Life style superhero origin story, and if Batman v Superman was Zack's Watchmen-style superhero deconstruction story, then the Snyder Cut is the evolution of the superhero film. It takes the dark, gritty realism of the genre's all too frequently superficially explored anti-heroism and pushes it aside to make room for the one thing that it has been missing for all these years.
Faith, Alfred! Faith!
In the Snyder Cut, Zack continues where Batman v Superman left off, taking the broken pieces and putting it all back together again, resulting in something life-affirming. A humanist mythology worth believing in. Like Batman v Superman, the Snyder Cut is obsessed with history, mythology, and art. From the history of Darkseid's original assault on Earth, which involved a great deal of old gods, to Diana working on a sculpture at a museum, to the paintings on the walls in the underground below the Shrine of the Amazons. However, instead of mythology and art being subverted in order to undermine faith, as in Batman v Superman via Luthor, the Snyder Cut utilizes mythology and art in order to restore faith. When the remaining Justice League members discuss the powers of the Mother Box, they realize they can potentially revive Superman. It poses a question: can we restore lost faith? Bruce maintains his faith, and the group revives Superman using the Mother Box, despite Arthur starting to question the decision. When Clark revives, he forgets who he is, and the Justice League has to fight him. This poses yet another question: is our faith being rejected? If Superman represents human idealism, then Clark's lack of humanity upon his revival can be read as being in support of Luthor's nihilism. But his love for Lois allows him to begin restoring his humanity. When Clark takes Lois to his childhood home, the location completes the restoration. Our history, our memories, our relationships. These are the things that make us human. When Clark realizes this, he remembers himself and embraces Lois and Martha. It is a reconfirmation of the faith. We were right to believe. Clark is humanity's hope. His belief in us is what gives us purpose. And since Clark represents human idealism, then his belief is really just our own belief. An optimism that humanity should be better and can be better. Clark chooses the black Superman suit over the red and blue suit because the black suit is more personal. His fathers believe that he was sent to Earth for a reason, and he owes it to himself to find what that reason is. By wearing the black suit, Clark is acknowledging that he accepts his greater purpose. All the hopes and dreams of Krypton live in him now. Perhaps Earth will avoid Krypton's fate. Perhaps we can learn from the mistakes of the past. But the Justice League is not just Superman. As Bruce says,
"There are 6, not 5. There's no us without him."
Bruce represents keeping faith and healing as he fights to make up for what he did in the past. Barry takes his father's advice and stops running in circles. He needs to make his own future. Diana needs to open back up and learn to love again. And Arthur learns that he can't run away and hide forever. He has to overcome his fears in his past in order to claim his destiny. But Cyborg is truly the heart of this story, as he mirrors the development of every other Justice League member. He resurrects and regains his humanity, just like Clark. He has to heal, just like Bruce. He has to make his own future, just like Barry. He has to open up to people again, just like Diana. And he has to overcome his fears and stop hiding, like Arthur. Zack frames the bodies of his heroes as glorious works of art, recalling ancient Greek representations of the human body, sculpted and refined. Their bodies being used as shapes for Zack to manipulate as he places them within the elements of their respective environments. These moments are created in order to call in greater meanings. That these people are larger than life. That they are super. There is even a fantastical Disney-esque atmosphere in the scene where Aquaman looks at the Atlantean throne with a sense of wonderment. There's also the part where the women are singing a traditional Icelandic song as Aquaman enters the ocean. It reflects how the Icelandic villagers have built Aquaman up as a mythological figure, a god. We get this cut to Martha as she looks at Clark's grave. With Aquaman, the song was being used to frame his deity-like status among the villagers. But with Martha at Clark's grave, the song is being used to frame Martha's grief and love for her lost son. This dual usage of the Icelandic song is masterful. Zack Snyder's Justice League is a tonal masterpiece. Whether it's the Star Wars prequels, or Space Jam, or Tim Burton's Batman movies, or Joel Schumacher's Batman movies. Little 7-year-old me had his eyes glued to the screen, enchanted by the storytelling capabilities of the audiovisual medium known as film. I was not aware of the profound effects that these films were having on me at the time, but 20 years later, my entire life has clearly been, in some part, determined by the films I watched as a child. The very fact that this video exists is a testament to the profound effects that films have had on the nature of my being. Zack Snyder's Justice League made me feel like I was 7 again, 9 different times. That's right, I've watched Zack Snyder's Justice League a total of 9 times as of the posting of this video. And honestly, I don't regret a single second of the 36 hours that I spent. Zack's heightened cinematic dialectic continually drives the film towards a progressive, empathetic optimism rarely seen in superhero films or in Hollywood films in general. The Snyder Cut is funny.
Option A,
Definitely not A.
Okay. Or B.
Let me see A again.
The Snyder Cut is action-packed. The Snyder Cut is emotional.
They told us our gods would outlive us.
The Snyder Cut is beautifully shot. This shot actually reminds me a lot of Tarkovsky, aka the greatest artist in human history. Snyder Cut lets Silas give a good slap to those keyboard keys. Snyder Cut says goodbye to whiny bitch Alfred from Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy and says hello to cool, badass, sexy Alfred. The Snyder Cut says goodbye to mumbling idiot James Gordon and says hello to funny, relatable James Gordon.
You were right, Ma. Police Academy. What's wrong with dental school?
The Snyder Cut says hello to Leto's best villain performance. This Joker is so much better than the 2016 Joker, and it is infinitely better than the god-awful Neander Wallace villain from the god-awful Blade Runner 2049. Works of art like this do not come out very often. That is why I am giving Zack Snyder's Justice League a score of 10 out of 10. That's right, after 2 years and 8 months, after almost 1,300 reviews, Zack Snyder's Justice League is receiving my first ever 10 out of 10. It is an absolute masterpiece. I want to end this review with some recommendations. Watch any of the films from this JPEG as they are all great. I would even recommend watching The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises with friends, not alone, because they are awful and fun to laugh at for the memes. As a side note, Batman Begins is far too atrocious to even watch jokingly, so just avoid that. Check out The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, the two greatest graphic novels that I've ever read. I also mentioned Tarkovsky earlier, and I would absolutely recommend any of his films. He is the greatest director ever. Lastly, restore the Snyderverse. For the love of Superman.
Once upon a time, a man was born with an analytical mind, consuming all